This little improvisation you can hear me playing is in the key of A flat major, which has 4 flats in its key signature. It has 4 black notes in the scale. But actually, it's pretty straightforward. It's not at all a difficult improvisation to play. And in fact, we're going to be looking at how to play it a little bit later in this tutorial. But the reason I'm messing about in the key of A flat is that I want to address a question that came up in the comments recently underneath one of my tutorials, and which actually I get quite a lot. And basically it's this: what's the point of learning these so-called hard keys with lots of black notes like A flat major, or indeed any keys really other than the basic C major and A minor, the white note keys? Given that if you've got a digital piano or a keyboard or a digital audio workstation or whatever, actually it's really easy just to transpose everything automatically. With a digital piano you could play everything in C major and just transpose things at the touch of a button. So why bother with these keys that have all of these awkward black notes? So what we're going to do today is first of all quickly talk about why I think it's really important that you practice playing in these black note keys, and then I'm going to show you how to get to grips with them. And this improvisation exercise should help us to work through some of the key ideas. Don't forget, by the way, to check out the bundle deal I have running on the digital editions of my 3 current books: How to Really Play the Piano, the Stuff Your Teacher Never Taught You, An Introduction to Cocktail Piano, and 7 Studies in Pop Piano. Right now you can get all 3 of those ebooks for just £18.95, which is a saving of 30% on what you pay if you bought them separately. And if you've already got one of the books, don't worry, because you can still get the discount on the other 2. Just head over to billspianopages.com/bundle to find out more. So let's think about these supposedly difficult keys that have lots of black notes in them. I say supposedly difficult because actually they're not that difficult at all. It's true that they are more difficult to read if you're working from a written score, because then you perhaps have to remember a complicated time signature and deal with lots of accidentals and so on. But when you're actually playing the piano keyboard, doing that in the key of D flat major is no more physically difficult than doing it in the key of C major. So if you're improvising, if you're working from a chord progression, the physical task is really no more challenging. The reason people think it is because when we all start learning the piano, typically we begin with keys that are heavy on white notes, usually starting with C major and moving on to G major and F major, mostly white notes. So when we come then to keys like E major, which has 4 sharps in it, 4 black notes, it looks kind of strange and new and challenging and difficult. But as I said, really it isn't. Now, there are 3 reasons why I think it's a good idea for you to spend a bit of time working on your skills in these keys that have more black notes in them. Number 1, quite a lot of songs are actually written in those keys, and you don't want to be in a situation where you're always having to transpose those songs into C major or A minor or whatever every time you come across them. So for example, there are thousands of songs written in the key of E major because that's a really guitar friendly key. In fact, if you ever find yourself playing in a band of any sort, then being able to play in these keys that have lots of black notes is pretty much essential. Rock and pop bands tend to use lots of sharp keys like E and A, while jazz bands tend to use a lot of flat keys like E flat. Number 2, even if you're playing in C major and A minor most of the time, you're still every now and then going to come across non-diatonic chords that use lots of black notes. So you can be playing along in C but then suddenly come across a key like A flat major, and you want to be comfortable with chords like that, and playing around in keys like A flat major will help you make those chords kind of second nature, just like the white note chords are. And number 3, this is a bit more controversial, but I think there's a lot of truth in it. different keys sound kind of different, and they certainly play very differently. They have subtly different characters. Now that doesn't make a ton of difference when you're transposing between different keys. For example, if you need to change key to suit the range of a singer you're working with, or if you're singing yourself. But I find it does make a difference if you're getting creative. So for example, I find that I tend to write a different kind of material in D flat major compared to, say, E major. You'll also find that you tend to improvise differently in different keys, simply because of the varying ways that your hands fall on the piano keyboard in each different key. So different keys playing in a variety of different keys can be really useful for creating a kind of range of improvisatory effect. Okay, so in a few minutes I'll give you some general tips on working in these keys that have a lot of black notes, but for now let's learn this improvisation exercise, because going through it is going to really help us understand some of the issues that you need to think about. Now you heard me play a little snippet of it at the start of this tutorial. It's in the key of A flat major, it's in 4/4 time, and it's based on a really simple 16-bar chord progression which looks like this. You can also find this progression written out in full in the description text right underneath this video. So I'm going to play this in kind of a piano ballad style. I'm going to improvise through the progression twice, kind of slightly varying the styles that I use, but not much. This isn't going to be 100% pure improv, by the way, because I have worked up some of the ideas in advance to make sure that we've got stuff to talk about, but it's near enough. Here goes. Just before we go through exactly what I was doing there, let's have a quick look at the chords in the progression. Most of them are really straightforward. It's worth saying that I was kind of messing around with them a little bit, okay? So what we're going to be talking about here are the basic underlying chords. The way that I'm decorating the chords we'll talk about in a minute or two. So looking at the first 4 bars, the first 4 measures to start with, we start off with a bar of A flat, 4 beats of A flat. Then we have a bar of B flat minor, and I've put 7 in brackets, so if you want to play B flat minor 7, want to base your improvisation on B flat minor 7, you can do, that's fine, but you could just use B flat minor. Then we have C minor, again with an optional 7th, so you can play C minor 7 if you want to. And then in bar 4 we have D flat. Okay, so that's bars 1 to 4, measures 1 to 4. Bars 5 to 8 are exactly the same. That pattern just repeats. Then if we look at bars 9, 10, 11 and 12, we've got B flat minor 7, and I would suggest always using a B flat minor 7 there. Then E flat 7. Then in bar 11 we've got 2 chords. We've got 2 beats of A flat, which I played in that inversion, though you don't have to. Then 2 beats of E flat over G, okay, because we're coming down the bass line there. We've got an F next, we'll come on to that. E flat over G. Quick tip, don't be tempted to play an E flat 7 there. It would sound wrong, it will want to take you back to A flat. Although it's the number 5 chord, if you know a bit of music theory, although it's the dominant chord, we're using it as a passing chord there. So two beats of A flat, 2 beats of E flat over G, and then in bar 12 we have a bar of F minor. Okay, if you wanted to, you could play F minor 7 as well. I've put the 7 in brackets again. Then in bars 13, 14, 15 and 16 we've got B flat minor 7 again, E flat 7 and back to A flat in bars 15 and 16. And in bar 16 you can include a turnaround chord. Yeah, so I've just put E flat 7 in there, but in actual fact what I did was play a substitution. I think when I improvised I was playing something like that. Yeah, some sort of substitution chord for the E7, just E flat 7, just to take you back to the start of the progression. If you're winding up the progression, then bars 15 and 16 should both be A flat. Okay, so in a second we'll get the improvisation back on screen and walk through exactly what I was doing step by step. Before we do though, there are one or two important general things that I want you to notice. First of all, look at my hand position when I'm playing this improvisation. Now, as I've said in the past, I am a pretty terrible example personally of good hand position on the piano because I have this weird bone structure in my arms that makes me hold my hands kind of a bit wrong on the piano keyboard. But in spite of my crazy anatomy, what you should notice me doing is making sure I've got my fingers pretty deep into the keys. Okay, I'm all the way up here a lot of the time. A classic mistake among newbies, and in fact among quite a lot of people who are not such newbies really, is playing the piano by the ends of the keys. Yeah. Now, if you're playing in keys that mostly use white notes, that's not too much of a problem. But once you start playing a lot of black notes, then it becomes really insecure. So dig up deep into the keys and find a good, secure position. Second important general thing that I want you to understand is that I was using a lot of rhythmic anticipation in that improvisation, which is standard for this kind of style, this kind of pop piano, ballad piano style. Now, if you don't know what rhythmic anticipation is, basically what I was doing was playing in pretty strict time according to the underlying beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I wasn't speeding that up or slowing that down very much. A little bit maybe, but not much. But what I was doing was sometimes making chord changes a little bit ahead of the beat where they're supposed to happen according to the progression. Okay, so sometimes, in fact pretty often, bringing in chords slightly ahead of the bar where they're supposed to appear. Let me just demonstrate that in really simple terms using the first 4 bars of the progression, okay, and counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Yeah? What I was doing in the right hand with those chords was anticipating the beat. Really, really common in pop piano, in ballad piano, this kind of style, and I was doing it pretty constantly throughout the improvisation, yeah, albeit it was pretty well disguised under some of the decorative stuff that I was doing. I'm just mentioning it now because it sometimes confuses beginners who are counting along, okay, so just watch out for that. Okay, with all that in mind, let's get the performance back on the screen and just walk through some of the details. One thing I should do before we do that is just show you the scale of the key of A flat major, just in case you don't know it, yeah, because I will refer to it. It is A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, G, and back to A flat at the top of the octave. Let's do it again. A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, G, and back to A flat, so you can see those 4 black notes really clearly. Okay, hold that thought, let's go through the improvisation. So here we are back at the start of the improvisation. Now, if you've watched any of my walkthrough tutorials in the past, you will know the drill here. What I'm going to do is take you through exactly what I did step by step to help you understand how I put the improvisation together. However, because we're talking about black note keys today, I'm going to particularly focus on some of the techniques that I've used to make the key work for me rather than against me, because like I said earlier, this is a really important thing. Playing in black note keys is actually, in physical terms, no more difficult than playing in white note keys. Okay, it's just that you have to use slightly different strategies. As always with piano improvisation, what we're doing here is making the most of what falls under our hands. okay? Looking at what comes under our fingers and exploiting that, playing stuff that feels comfortable. That doesn't mean we're not pushing ourselves out of our comfort zones, okay? But certain things are going to feel more comfortable in this key than they would in others. And hold that thought, because we're going to come back to it in a second. And clearly I'm not just talking about improvisation here. Improvisation is not just a performance thing, but it's also a way of working up ideas for songs, for solos, for all kinds of other things. So, these are general principles you can apply. Let's just have a listen again to the first kind of 4 bars, 4 measures of the improvisation. Here we go. Okay, so that was the first 4 full bars. Let's just go through those absolutely step by step to show you what I was doing. So first bar, I was on the A flat chord, so I hit A flat and E flat in the left, simple open 5th, and in the right I also had an A flat and an E flat, but then a B flat, which isn't in the chord. It's an added 9th into that chord. What I'm doing is setting up that classic kind of pop piano, country piano technique of resolving the 9th to the 3rd. I call it a country 3rd, okay, so various other people call it that as well, but it's a really kind of typical sound for this genre. Okay, let's just watch me do that, yeah? There we go, resolving upwards. Now, helpfully, that falls really, really naturally under my fingers in this key of A flat. In some ways, that's a more natural feel there than it is if you did it in C, okay? Because those black notes that you're playing just sit there nicely under your fingers, and then when it resolves up to the C, it's really comfortable, yeah? So we're going to be leaning on this technique quite a lot in this improvisation. I kind of, like I said, I planned this in advance quite a lot so I could demonstrate various different things. But this technique in particular works really well in this key, okay? So when you find something that works really well in a particular key, stick with it. Other things wouldn't work so well in this key. For example, if we were playing jazz, where often you have a lot of grace notes, where you resolve a black note to a white note in a key like C, that would be really difficult, because often the grace notes in a key like A flat, well, not really difficult, but more difficult, often the grace notes in a key like A flat will be going white note to black note, which is harder, okay? So different things work well in different keys. Hold that thought, let's keep going. And there's our second chord, B flat, and I'm playing it as the B flat minor 7, as I gave you the option to in the chord progression. We've got B flat and F in the left, and in the right, A flat, which is the 7th, B flat, and I'm suspending this E from the previous chord. Okay, again, another classic pop piano thing, a really easy thing to do in this key, because it's just that E flat sticks out beautifully, it's really easy to sit on it. But it's a very kind of classic pop piano, ballad piano kind of thing, whereby you are quite conservative about your hand movements and you very often suspend notes from one chord to another. Okay, so you do more by moving less. That's a concept I've talked about quite a lot in the past. Let's move on. C minor. Yeah, there we go, and that was C minor to the D flat. And again, on that D flat, on the C minor chord, I created a little bit of melody. Let's just hear that, just coming up the C, E flat, F. And then onto the D flat chord, again I did the suspended 9th, but in a slightly different inversion this time. Rather than playing it D, E flat, A flat, and then resolving to the F that way, I put the A flat at the bottom. And again, in this key, that's really, really comfortable. Let's just have a listen to that. C minor, dum dum, there we go, the country 3rd, the resolving 9th, and just kind of wiggled my way back down it there, to use a technical term. Yeah, notice that all I'm doing is playing the notes of the chord that I've already used as I come down what looks like a pretty quick run, but isn't, because it's falling naturally under my fingers. And then back to the kind of motif we had at the start. But this time I was just, kind of developing a little bit. And we've gone higher, okay? I've gone up to the D flat, and I hit that B flat for a D flat 6 chord, resolving down to a standard D flat chord. Here it goes. Just with a D flat and A flat in the left. Lots of these open 5ths. which in pop piano you can get away with. If we were playing jazz, it wouldn't sound quite right. You'd be going for sevenths as shell chords instead. But here it can be a really nice sound, as long as you're remembering to fill in the identity of the chord in the right hand, fill in the third of the chord, okay? Even if it's suspended a little bit first. The other thing to notice, always, I know I harp on about this, but listen to the dynamics, listen to the expression. I kind of grew the volume up there. I added a little bit of a crescendo. Let's listen again. Getting louder. And then softer again. Okay, very little interesting thing happened there. I got onto the B flat minor 7 chord, and look at what I did. Kind of reverse arpeggio, so I hit the A flat, then filled in the rest of the chord in the right down here. I'd already filled in some of the left, but then I filled in some of the middle notes of the chord in the left there, just to give it a little bit of movement, but a kind of different kind of movement from what we've had so far, so it's a little bit of a contrast. All the resolutions we've had so far have been going up the piano keyboard. It's been B flat to C or E flat to F. I just wanted a little bit of going down as well. Just listen to that again. There we go. E flat 7, kept it really simple, arpeggiated it slightly, but nothing complicated there. Okay, classic pop piano move there. Went up to the A flat. There it is. Yeah, and a really quick suspended ninth resolving up to the third, country third there on that E flat chord. Classic thing to do. Just did it really quickly, almost as a grace note. Like I said, E flat over G, notice that I'm avoiding the 7th. If you played the 7th there, it would try to resolve too strongly back to the tonic. It would want to take you back to the A flat chord, and we don't want to go there. We want this nice natural bass line to come down to the F for the F minor chord. Again, listen to the dynamics, keeping it nice and coming down, keeping it nice and soft. Let's just hear that little bit again. From B flat minor 7. Nice and gentle. Right, never be afraid to repeat tricks that have worked, okay? So there I am doing exactly the same thing as I did a few bars ago with that B flat minor 7 chord, okay? Here we go. And to the A flat. Now in lieu of a proper E flat 7 chord, I've used a kind of, I guess it's A flat sus4 with an E in the bass, which has a dominant effect. Yeah, in this key, so it takes us nicely back to the start of the progression without being as kind of cheesy and obvious as an E flat chord would be. Let's just hear that again. There it is. And now back to the start of the progression. So we're now on second time through, and a lot of what we see is going to be quite similar, but there are some variations. Okay. For example, there on that B flat 7 chord, B flat minor 7 chord. I went from that position, which I used first time through, but then shifted it just so that the A came to the top of the octave. Because that could put me then in a good position to do that. Now, kind of a little bit of radical rule breaking there. I did the country third thing again on a C minor chord, but that meant the C right next to the D flat. But I don't care, because I think it sounds kind of crunchy and cool. Let's listen to it again. There's that B flat minor 7. Okay. And what you're seeing here is just really slightly more elaborate versions of what we saw first time through. Yeah, let's go again. Yeah, so we had a little bit of a kind of another suspension there, but it was the D flat chord, but instead of suspending the E flat in the chord, I suspended the G instead. So momentarily we had A flat, D flat and G natural responding down to the F. Let's just hear that again. And then this is a kind of an extended lick really that just takes us back down to the A flat. It's a kind of resolving ninth, country third type thing, excuse me, on the D flat chord. But then hand goes over and takes us back to the A flat. Yeah, let's just watch that again. If you're trying to learn these things for yourself, something it might be worth doing is going back to the performance section and using the little slow function that you can find in the bottom right hand corner of the YouTube window. Yeah, if you click the little cog icon, it'll bring up options to slow the video down. So you can take it down to half speed or even slower if you want, and pick out exactly what I'm doing. And hopefully the virtual keyboard up here will help with that as well. Okay, so here we go. Bit more repetition and a bit of variation. Okay, now things are about to go a little bit crazy. I've got B flat minor 7 about to happen, and I'm actually playing as a 7th in the left. And look how I'm going to sit, followed by followed by an E flat. But look how I'm going to sit on the same position in the right. Watch this. B flat minor 7, E7. Yeah, but I retained that sort of D flat shape in the right. Okay, again, very common kind of pop piano thing. Doing more by doing less. Just watch that bit again. And also I kind of got stuck in there. Yeah, that's a really good kind of crunchy, kind of climactic bit there. And then we get into this really fancy bit up here. Let's just play it through. Really all that is a string of suspensions. So we've got the A flat chord to the E flat over G to the F minor. And all I do is on the A flat, where is it? I go for the E flat, A flat, B flat, resolving up to C. Okay, play around with that. And then the same thing but in a different inversion on the E flat chord. E flat, F, B flat, resolving up to G. And then on the F minor chord, instead of playing the F minor straight away, I hang on to the B up there and resolve that down to the A flat. Just watch that again. Again, you might find it really helpful to slow this down. And right down again in the volume. That's quite a nice little substitution there. Well, it's not really a substitution, even it's a suspension of the penultimate E flat chord, the dominant chord. I've got B flat, E flat, A flat, and resolving the A flat down to the G. Let's just hear that again. And then just up the broken chord. Notice how I used, hold on, here it is. There's that little B flat minor 7 thing that I used twice or maybe even 3 times earlier. Yeah, when you come across a good idea, recycle, 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 recycle. No one will notice that you're doing the same thing over again if people are listening. Okay, if it works, use it. Okay. And there we go. So hopefully what you can see here is that I have really relied on what's fallen under my hands in terms of the improvisation. Also look at the hand position. I know I've got my funny hands and my funny arms and things, but you can get the idea. All the way through this, I'm dug deep up into those keys. Okay, and the movements I'm making, the movements that demands of me, yes, are slightly different from what you would need to use if you were playing in white note keys, but they're not really any more difficult. It's just a case of slightly adjusting to them. So when you have a go at the improvisation for yourself, make sure your hand position is right, and play around with some of these suspensions and messings about first, and then try to slot them in for yourself. Okay, so hopefully going through that improvisation has shown you that playing around in keys with lots of black notes doesn't need to be that complicated. Before we wrap up, I want to give you 2 final tips about working with keys that have lots of black notes in them. First of all, playing your scales regularly is really gonna help. I know scales can be dull, but they make a world of difference to something like this. So if you know your A flat major scale so well in both hands that you kind of don't even need to think about it to play it, then you're 90% of the way to being able to do this stuff without too much difficulty. A kind of related issue is that knowing your key signatures, in other words, knowing that A flat major has 4 flats and what they are, or that E major has 4 sharps and what they are, that really makes a difference as well. Making that knowledge really instinctive shouldn't take too long, but it's a really good way to invest your time. It'll really pay off in terms of your musicianship. Second, I don't usually like saying to people, learn all of the chords in every key, and expecting them to kind of go through all the major and minor keys, working out all of the diatonic chords and memorizing them. The reason I don't like saying that is that I think the best way to learn the chords of a key is to play lots of music in that key. That way everything becomes far more instinctive. However, when it comes to some of these keys that have a lot of black notes, for example A flat and D flat, where there maybe aren't quite as many songs for you to work on, I do think there's something to be said for going down that brute force route at least a little bit and actually learning at least the 1, 4 and 5 chords of some of those keys. Okay, so there we go. I hope you found that tutorial useful. I hope it's convinced you to spend at least a little bit more time working in some of these supposedly more difficult keys. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, stick them in the comment thread right underneath the video. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel using the little red button if you're not already subscribed. And do please follow me on social media. My Facebook, Twitter and Instagram links are all below. You might also be interested in supporting my Patreon crowdfunding campaign over at patreon.com/BillHilton. It doesn't cost very much to support me on Patreon, but you get some fantastic benefits, including access to my piano packs, priority support from me personally, and you just get to join in the really kind of fun, relaxed, enjoyable community that we have there on Patreon. Okay, happy piano playing, enjoy these black note heavy keys. I'll see you next time.